welcome to another video episode of Crow Jam. I'm Miriam, and as always, I'm joined by a raging thespian. It's my sister Georgia.
Hiya, darling. The stage is my life, etc.
And we are once again hyped on the mic to try and develop and pitch a board game idea within an hour. And with us this time is our delightful guest, my friend Suzanna.
Hello.
Suzanna, would you mind telling the listener a little bit about yourself and maybe about the kinds of games you're into?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Suzanna. I used to work with Miriam at the Board Game Cafe, so that was some good times. And then sadly, I moved away in order to pursue my true passion of physics. But I do still play a lot of board games. Some favorites. I'm always fond of Cult Express, especially with people who have never played it before, because that's utter chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And then like some good standards. Wingspan. Everyone loves Wingspan. That
Not
kind of
everyone,
thing.
but everyone should love Wingspan.
Everyone should love Wingspan. It's great. If you don't love it, just call me. And I'll convince you.
You're enjoying this wrong.
Yeah, fantastic.
And you have brought our theme this week, which I think we're both quite excited by. So what is the theme that we'll be jamming on?
The theme is the word loophole.
I absolutely love this. So what inspired you to choose loophole?
Well, I mean, the thought process, you tell me to pick a word, and I was kind of going through other forms of game, such as TTRPGs and video games, thinking like, what word could I potentially steal from there that you don't tend to shove in board games? And I was thinking about, RPGs, and then I always go to warlocks and various contracts with Fey people. And then I was like, oh, contracts could be fun. And then I ended up going from contracts to loopholes in, it was going to be in contracts, but I thought loophole was a good vague word.
I think it's really great. Yeah, I mean, it has one sort of specific meaning in kind of like an analogous, or representative sense in English. Did you have any ideas about a loophole game? Like off the back of when you came up with the word, did it bring anything to mind?
Well, there was a couple concepts I thought about where either you could have like any sort of game, and then the rules to the game were like purposefully vaguely written, and you would be allowed to do anything in order to win as long as you could convince people that would be allowed according to like the written word of the rules.
There's nothing in the rule book that says a dog can't play basketball.
Yeah, so I should be able to play this piece here, that kind of thing. And then there was another one where I thought maybe just trying to force each other into awful contracts and then trying to get out of the contracts you've made with other players could be fun.
Oh, yeah,
I like
the
that.
contract idea.
That's a very fun idea, yeah. Sort of like a kind of like a shifting alliances type game where you might like form some kind of contract with somebody where there's a clear winner and a clear loser, and then okay. That's
Miriam, did you have any thoughts?
I wrote down a few things, but they're all along sort of, I guess, similar lines, but just different ways of exploring the same kind of topic. So one was kind of like, the game Flux. It's like a card game that's constantly evolving and the rules constantly change. So a lot of the cards are different rules for like what you do on your turn and how you win. I was wondering about something that approximates to that, but instead of adding rules, you're adding like loopholes, like sort of exemptions to rules. And in a similar vein, I was thinking about like a game which maybe has like somewhat simple but like rules with a few different sort of parameters or like items within, and then you can break the rules by like paying one of a resource and then coming up with a new loophole, but then that applies to everybody. And so everybody can then exploit that loophole. And at the end, you score a certain amount, but you multiply your score by the amount of that resource that you have left. So like you win by doing good at exploiting loopholes, but also by not doing it too much, by like exploiting the loopholes that other people have created. That's kind of a like a slightly complex idea that I just outlined. It seemed simpler in my mind.
So I was thinking also about sort of shifting rules or rules changing. I was thinking about a game where you sort of make the rules up collaboratively, or sort of as play proceeds. I was maybe imagining a game where rules come in 3 parts that are maybe on cards, and you sort of play them to create combinations, but then you can change them or something like that. So it feels like we're all on the same kind of page, and that we want something that both features rules and the breaking of rules or the shifting of rules.
It's not breaking them, it's finding loopholes.
Yeah, it's true. It's flexing the rules. It's bending the rules.
Yeah. It's being not in the spirit of the rules.
It might be fun to think about a kind of like a base level of what a game might look like, so that we can talk slightly less abstractly, if that makes sense. Like if we were going to make a game and the entire theme was loopholes, what would be a fun kind of theme or basic board state to be working from?
A fun theme, I think, would be like something to do with getting out of trouble, whether it was like set in court or getting out of like a parking ticket or something like that. Like, you know, some kind of minor trouble that you could be in, but you could sort of like weasel your way out of. Maybe you use a real weasel in some way.
Okay.
Detention or something.
Yes, good.
Yeah, I was sort of imagining maybe it had like, I'm not sure whether it's this kind of game is going to lend itself better to something a bit more abstract, where yeah, I don't know. Like if you're starting with, if we're talking about creating loopholes or contracts, what would be like a starting set of rules that we then need to find like exemptions to?
One of the challenges of this, I think, is that it's tricky to pre-design fixed rules that have loopholes. You could say, for example, like an example of this would be like, oh, the rules of my apartment say no dogs, so I have a cat. Like it's something like that, or you know, like where you just change one detail to get away with it. So I guess that's sort of, so the idea of maybe like rules that you create by overlaying. So I'm imagining, for example, like 3 piles of cards in the middle of the table, and it says something like yellow scores 3. So there'd be a pile where the top card says yellow, a pile where the top card says scores, and a pile where the top card says 3, and then you look at your hand and you're like, oh, I've got loads of yellows. So you play a card onto that final pile and it says yellow scores 5, and suddenly your score's gone up.
Mm-hmm.
Or you haven't got any yellows and you and your opponent's got loads, and you change the middle card so that it says like subtracts 3 or something.
Yeah.
Like,
that's definitely
not
more...
exactly loopholes though.
Yeah, that's kind of Flux style. Like Flux very much is that kind of like you have the cards in the center that have the rules, and it tends to be like on your turn, draw this many cards, play this many cards, this is how you win, and there can be like multiple things. It's not, they don't necessarily combine in that way you described. I was wondering whether a fun theme for this would be, it's not really a thing we have so much in the UK, but you know, in the United States, there'll be like streets or developments where there's kind of neighborhood rules about what you can and can't do with the exterior of your property.
Yeah, like the homeowners association.
That would be great, yeah. Trying to get things in your house.
I think this is the kind of thing that people actually do a lot of kind of like malicious compliance and kind of like trying to get one over on the homeowners association, because they want, you know, they want to have like raised beds on their lawn rather than a, you know, pristine cut lawn, or, you know, they want that to have their house, you know, like pale pink instead of pale orange, you know.
Okay. So I really like the idea of it being something to do with kind of like screwing over the homeowners association. As you say, we don't really have that in the UK, but on the other hand, it is such a like uniquely unappealing thing to me. Like, you know, obviously it's presented to us in media in a particular way that, you know, it's full of like busybodies, and it's, you know, people who just can't mind their own business and telling you how to live your life and stuff. So it all, you know, it like triggers a certain feeling in me of like, well, I want to do what these people don't want me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I also love that idea because a loophole does have something to do with malicious compliance. You know, like, oh, they say that you have to take your bins out on the day of, not the night before, so I'm going to do it at 4 a.m. and I'm going to do it really loud.
Yeah, I'm kind of imagining like maybe a board which sort of has a street map, and then yeah, like maybe perhaps like on top of kind of like classic HA type rules, there's some even stupider things, you know. It's like if your car is red, then it can't park next to a white car, or, you know, something like that. And then yeah, you're sort of, I'm not sure whether we would like be inventing new loopholes or whether we would just be trying to kind of make use of existing wording.
My thinking is, would it be like, could it be a head-to-head thing where there is a player or players who represent the homeowners association who are trying to use their cards to create rules that put other people in violation, and then the people in violation are trying to move, you know, the decor of their house or where they've parked their car to sort of always be like just skirting the rules in some way. Like,
yeah, I guess the other way of playing this is kind of like a weird sort of, not necessarily like a social deduction game, but kind of an intrigue game where you're trying to do what you want with your house, but there's also, all players kind of form a committee, like a homeowners association committee, where you vote on what the rules are. So it, like, yeah, I'm not
I do
sure.
like the concept of like maybe having regular like homeowners association meetings where the rules get like adjusted, where it's like, oh, this person's managed to get out of this, so now we're gonna have a meeting and we're gonna fix it, and then you have to kind of figure out a new way to get around everything.
Yeah, and there could sort of be a bit of that like kind of council dynamic in it where it's like, okay, yeah, I do have like, you know, flat posts in my fence instead of a picket fence or something. You know, I'm violating that, but you could like try and make a deal with somebody that you'll let their thing go if, you know, you'll vote to let their thing go if they vote to let your thing go.
Okay, I have a little bit of a pitch, and it is not fully developed, but the idea would be that it is a social deduction game, where, so I'm sort of mentally calling it Weasel Out, which is that there is a community of humans who own homes, but also a family of weasels has managed to buy a home.
Okay.
They've like dressed up as a person and they've gone to the bank and they've been able to buy a home, but they don't know the rules of the homeowners association. But also the rules of the homeowners association are kind of so arcane that not everyone has access to all of them. So every player except for the weasel player who has like blank cards, every player has a collection of rule cards to try and like you know, organize their house by. And there'd be some overlap in what people had, but not everyone would have everything. And then there would be like, so there would be a turn or a move where you update your house to try and reflect what you think the rules are. And then there's a weekly homeowners meeting where everyone gets together, and you're maybe only allowed to bring one thing, which is like, oh, you know, so and so has their garbage bin at the front instead of at the back, which is in contravention of the rules. And then you'd like take a vote on who gets kicked out of the community or who gets like sort of sanctioned by the community, and you're trying to find the weasel. But
yeah, alternatively, you wouldn't necessarily even need to like voice the rules if you just used a kind of like, well, actually, no, I suppose voicing the rules would fit the theme a bit better. I was imagining almost just like placing a disapproval token on a house that has broken a rule you've got. But yeah,
you get too many disapprovals, then you don't get invited to some like neighborhood events. You don't get invited to garage sales and such.
And barbecues.
Village
I don't
fetes.
know if it's quite loopholey enough, but I do
No.
like the direction that it's taken us.
I also, it's kind of it's starting to resemble, although while still being quite different, a game called Decorum. Have you like seen this in abstract? It's a cooperative game.
Oh, about decorating a house.
Yeah, you like live together and need to like agree on the decor. It's kind of like almost a competitive version of that in a way.
Something that I'm thinking about, just in terms of like rules and loopholes, is that a rule that works to have a loophole is a rule like a rule that says what something cannot specifically be. So cars cannot be parked at the front of the property means that they could be parked to the side, to the back, on top of.
Yeah.
So you sort of need a set of rules. Like if you were going to do this game, you could do it in such a way where about half the rules were, you know, garbage bins must be in the backyard. But the other half are just, you know, garbage bins must not be at the front, at the side. Do you see what I mean? So that only one player maybe knows exactly what the rule is about where garbage bins are. One player has absolutely no information whatsoever. And then other players have sort of a piece of the puzzle of the information so that they are sort of able to, without necessarily knowing it, they can loophole, if you see what I mean.
Yes, although I do feel like if we, I don't want to, I feel like Suzanna hasn't had much time to speak. Basically, I feel like if we're doing a loopholes game, I want the loopholing to be more active and less like guesswork, if that makes sense. Like if we're doing, hey, my bins aren't in the front. They're like, they're on my balcony or whatever. I want that to be more deliberate.
Okay.
I don't know.
I definitely like the concept of there being a little animal families that are maybe trying to pass as like humans amongst the neighborhood. I think maybe a fun concept could be each player is like a different animal family. Like here's a bunch of weasels trying to pass, and here's a bunch of badgers, and they
Okay,
all kind
so
of don't understand human rules, and so are loopholing their way through getting a good weasel house into the homeowners association.
I think that could be part of the puzzle. Maybe is that like instead of it being like a community of humans and only one sort of non-human family that have moved in, is it more like there's only one human who sort of knows all the rules or has a better sense of the rules, and then everyone else is sort of trying to loophole their way through the rules and not get caught out in like a direct contravention?
Yeah, I just don't.
It could maybe be an asymmetric thing, like the one human is like a member of the homeowners association there. Maybe like they're like the one human in the neighborhood that can tell that these are all animals. So like they're clearly breaking all of the rules that we've set up, and everyone else.
So there's kind of like a one sane man situation where this person is going to the homeowners association every week and being like, you can see they're weasels, right? And everyone else is like, no, it's not
They're
important.
digging
What about their
tunnels in the
bins?
lawn.
I feel like I got a little bit lost and I can't remember where we were before, George, you pitched the social deduction idea, because I'm just not sure whether it works or whether the best version of this is a social deduction thing, I guess, or I would like to explore other options.
Yeah,
We never started the timer. We've failed.
I don't think we need to. We'll stay on top of this. Be fine.
We failed at the podcast concept.
I'm not going to worry about it too much. Yeah, just set it for like 45 instead of the full hour. So I think where we were at before that was that we were talking about the possibility of voting on rules or something a bit more sort of. I mean, is it a competitive game? I feel like with a theme like loopholes, I want it to be a competitive game. I don't know how you feel about that, Suzanna.
Yeah, I think competitive would be good.
Because it's kind of about like getting one over on someone, and I feel like that's best when it's someone who's in the room with you.
Yeah. Okay, well, I guess so there needs to be some kind of limitation. Either you know all the rules, but you're limited in what you can do to follow them, or potentially the only way to score points is by breaking them. Like maybe you score like home satisfaction points. Or you don't know all the rules, but you can change whatever you want. But
what if you only score points? So still thinking about like things that you could add to your house or position on your house. You only score points if your house is the only one that has that thing in that position. Okay. But you still haven't broken a rule.
Okay. Yeah. So it's kind of about just standing out and or pissing everyone else off.
But you're not fully breaking the rules. And I feel like you could still keep this element then of everyone is in possession of a portion of the rules, but no one is in possession of all of the rules. And maybe only a rule only gets revealed once at the homeowners association. So
and we could do this in a
I think I possibly have something. So you would set up your house and you would try to make it so that all your things were in a position or a state that was different from everyone else. Then everyone would also have like a handful of rules that would belong to them and be private, but would always be in the format, bins must not be in front of a flower bed or something like that. Then at each meeting, you can reveal one of your rules, and any of your opposing players who are in contravention of that rule have to obey that rule. So then they can't score the points because it would be they would all be the same. They wouldn't have a unique feature.
Okay. Yes.
So you can come up with unique places to put things, and then that would make it possible for you to maybe do some loopholing. Like if you know a rule, you could do something that isn't in contravention of that rule, but isn't likely to be copied by anyone else.
Yeah, I like that. The thing I was going to say is that because we were talking about a situation where everybody knows most of the rules but not all, I was trying to figure out a way of doing that wasn't too clumsy, and I was thinking about the like letter jam solution. The like, your a card in front of you facing away from you is the one that you can't see. But actually I think the hand of cards, unlike, because then you're making a choice about what rule you want to bring up at the, there might be multiple rules which either are true or like have a sort of possibility to be true, but you're making a choice.
Yeah, and it wouldn't necessarily be the case. I think it would be good to have enough rules that not all of them get revealed. So I'm not sure if that means I'm not sure if that means that everyone gets to reveal a rule at the homeowners association, or maybe there's as many turns as there are players, and each of them gets to do it once or twice or something. What do we think?
I mean, I was imagining one, like each time you have a meeting, there being, I guess every turn kind of is a meeting, right?
Well, I think there would be maybe the opportunity to add more things or to rearrange things. What if every turn you discard a rule and draw a new one?
Yeah. So things that could like come under these rules would be like maybe color your house is painted, and that could be represented by like a changeable like token or something.
Yeah.
Where your bins are, where your car is parked, maybe like colors of flowers in your garden or something.
Yes.
You want to have kind of enough components of rules to be working with.
Yeah, and I think you'd want them to have the possibility to slightly contradict each other while still having some wiggle room, because I guess that's where loopholes are kind of formed.
Well, I like the bins and cars thing because you almost don't need to really codify that in the components of the game. It can just be like, well, I've put my car on my lawn, doesn't say I can't.
Yes, exactly. You want to be able to say there's no rule that says I can't. That's kind of the goal. What else might there be? You could have like number of items, so you could have like there cannot be more than 3 items in your front lawn, or there cannot be fewer than 2 or something like that, rules of that type.
Yeah. Suzanna, where's your brain at?
I'm currently trying to think about houses and what attributes they actually have. I guess having fences of certain height, yeah, you've already got fence design, but like other ways to get numbers into things, like this must measure between that and that.
I think there's like with some of these things like you know, you can't you know that if we have a lot of no rules, like you can't have your house painted blue, then you could have your house not painted at all, for example. Like, and the same with, you know, color of things, or indeed you could have no bins or something. um
Yes, that kind of brings an element of how much your house agrees with the rules and how much you actually like your house.
yes.
No bins, plain color.
Yeah.
So
So
it's kind of just thinking sort of abstractly. I suggested that you score points by being the only person who has something. So the only person with a blue house, or the only person with a tall fence, or something like that. So how does it work in terms of getting the tokens onto your sort of house board? Like, does everyone do everything at the start, or is there a round where it's like, okay, everyone pick your house color, and then we're going to have the homeowners association meeting about house color? Or
um I kind of wonder whether every like round is two stages, the like renovations stage and the association meeting stage. And I can kind of imagine the renovation stage as being kind of like a snake draft, where the first
ooh,
player can change one thing and everybody can go around and change one thing, and then we come back the other way, so that then you're getting to act upon what you've seen other people have if you're trying to be unique, but it's not like too complex, or like, you know, you only get two turns to do a thing and you have to act on the information you have.
yeah, I like that. So are we talking about, like, is it that a certain number of tokens are pulled out of a bag, and then those tokens are drafted and socketed into people's houses?
For setup, you mean, or just
Or just
like,
for like, how is it represented on people's houses, like what you've actually done?
yeah.
I could
So
imagine, like different colored tokens that look like tins of paint that represent what it looks like, or just simply, a token that shows your car that you can kind of, put on a particular like, I guess your house would have to have kind of like positions where things can be played, or is it completely, a free for all? So you get a
I
paint
like the idea
token,
of a free for all,
and you can, and if you already have a fence, you can paint your fence, or you could paint your car.
I think, I mean, to refer back to decorum, this game would require quite a lot more components, but that game does this quite nicely. Like, the color of your walls is represented by a sort of stripe with a roller in one of a number of colors, and you can change that to change the color. And like, I think we could do a similar thing. It has just kind of like a components board where everything is stored and everyone has access to all those things at all times.
So every token is available, like
Uh,
from the start. Could you have like
maybe there's
maybe,
only one of each, although no,
yeah,
that wouldn't
so how
that wouldn't work
about,
because everyone's trying to be unique, and that makes it way too easy.
yeah, I'm just thinking about maybe something um like sort of hoppers also, so it'd be kind of like a board. So I'm just adding some headings here, so like paint, items, fences, and then you've got tokens that kind of like feed downwards. So as you see someone take a token, then you could take the next one, or you could take something from any of the other columns. But maybe there would be, there'd be repeats, but you could only take the frontmost item. So if you want to get paint this round and there's two of the same color in a row, then you have to take two of the same color in a row.
Yes. Yeah. So I think that in that sense, the things which like can be different colors or what have you, maybe there'd be quite a limited number of colors.
Yes.
It does feel like the beginning state of each house needs to still have most of the things, or like there still needs to be a state of most of the rules, because otherwise, like in round one, each house only has 2 things to even call into question, I suppose.
I was thinking maybe like if each player gets kind of a house board, it could like you'd randomly hand out the boards and they'd all each have like a different default setup.
Oh, they
Like
come
when you
with
buy
like
your house, it's green,
they'd
but
come
you
with
could like overlay it with other colors or something.
yes. Yeah, so it would come with kind of like sockets for house color and it's previously filled in, but you could paint over it. So you could have like
Mm.
house color, front door color, garage door color. You know, do you have like grass in the front lawn or is it gravel?
Mm.
But
Okay, yeah.
it comes, yeah, I think that's so it comes with a setup, but you can override it. So then you could have, for example, like if your lawn was divided into 3 pieces, kind of like a left piece, a sort of pathway to your front door, and a right piece, then there could be a rule that says, you know, front yard may only have 2 different surfaces in it, but you could have yours have 3 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Mm. I was
Yeah.
also thinking maybe in order to like kind of force people to break rules a bit more, maybe some actions like repainting a fence could be multi-stage. So like in order to paint your fence, you first have to whitewash it, but having a white fence isn't allowed. And if you only
Okay.
have 3 turns, you can, and you've used 2 of them, you could whitewash your fence so that you could, you know, match the rules next time. But that would mean you break them this time or something like that.
And there's
Yeah.
always the chance that you can be in contravention of a rule, but someone won't choose to bring it up because they choose to bring up a different rule. I think
Yeah.
that's part of it, right? Like, you know, that there's likely to be lots and lots of rule violations because there's lots of rules, but everyone has to choose what's the one rule that they're going to bring up at the homeowners association
Yeah.
to try and punish as many of their opponents as possible while maintaining all the stuff that makes their house unique.
Mm. Yeah, I like the way it kind of simulates that kind of neighborhood pettiness, you know. Obviously, in a real life home association neighborhood, it would be everyone brings up everything.
Yeah.
uh, unless they're trying to protect their own.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing, right? Like, you could have your house in contravention of a rule and just not admit it because no one else is breaking that rule. So you can keep that rule to yourself.
Mm.
Now, do we think that you should? What if when you bring a rule up at the homeowners association, you then have to discard that card and draw a new rule so that there's more of a sense of like constantly shifting rules and you gain the ability to, you know, punish people for things that they thought were safe?
Okay, yeah, and you can't like do the same rule the next time.
Yeah, because you've discarded it.
So do you think that the punishment, if you play a rule and call others out on it, do they immediately have to change their thing back
Yeah,
to fit the rule, and then therefore they can't score for like unique
yes,
attributes?
because everyone would have to be the same.
Yes. Or possibly if you're playing a rule that's like slightly interpretable, they can change it and someone might still manage to be unique if they can get the right thing, right? Like if you say, like garage door can't be painted green. I don't know. Everyone could change it to either red or white.
Yeah, so
but one person hasn't painted their garage door yet, and so they managed to, yeah.
So I would say that when you reveal your rule, maybe what you do is play it face up and it becomes like a known rule. So then no one else can do anything in contravention of that rule.
Okay.
So then you kind of have to like stay on top of the rules. And if anyone like if a rule is face up, maybe anyone can call you out on it at any time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yes. And I guess it means that the game becomes more restricted as you go on, because if you always have to keep your house aligned with the rules that you know about,
Yes,
then it becomes harder to like have unique things. But I guess that's where the loopholing comes in.
that's exactly what I was going to say. Like once you know that the rule is like your garage door cannot be green, then that does tell you everything that your garage door can be. And so you can sort of start to do other things, or like
remove your garage door entirely.
Yeah, potentially. I'm not sure exactly how that would work, because I feel like I've sort of noted down like some possible things. So like paint colors, items that you might or might not have, like, and then maybe like textures, you know, like grass, sand, gravel, tarmac. I'm not exactly sure. I feel like I've drawn a little sort of map of the house board, but I feel like actually it should probably be like top down, showing like your porch and your backyard and your front yard and your garage and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, it could sort of work either way. It doesn't need to be like exactly like one-to-one physically accurate. Like in your drawing, the kind of top right corner could sort of act as though it's your backyard or whatever.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. I was just particularly thinking about like placement rules, which I think could be really interesting, because you could have placement rules like your bins cannot be in the same area as your car.
Yeah.
So, but then that doesn't mean that your car has to be on your driveway and your bins have to be in the backyard. You know, you could have like your car and your lawn and your bins in the garage or something like that. Suzanna, any thoughts?
I was just thinking when you made the joke about just taking the garage door off in order to match the paint rule, there could be certain things where like, oh, your car doesn't, your car is not one of the allowed colors, but if you hide it in your garage, then no one will know, and so it's fine. However, if something drastic happens and oh no, you have to completely remove your garage door in order to fit the rules because all the red paint is gone, then your car has been exposed, and now it must also match the rules. But that is quite drastic.
No, I really like that actually, because like one of the things that I've been thinking about is like I was sort of imagining like a board and you'd kind of like sock it in quite abstract, you know, like there's already a garage door on there and then you sock it in some paint. But actually, like you were saying about how you'd have to whitewash the fence before you paint it, I wonder if it's like you could do something like that where you have to get a fence before you paint it. So the fences come unpainted. So like round one, you'd get fence, but unpainted fence isn't allowed. Round two, you get paint and you can paint the fence. And then maybe the same thing for the garage door. You know, your house might come with a front door, but you could randomize all this stuff. You know, like you could, rather than have a sort of pre-set up card, for example, the cards could come all the same, but then everyone gets a handful of setup items. Do you see what I mean? But then if the garage door is a token instead of printed on the card, then you can remove it completely. But if your car is in there, it will expose your car.
So there could be almost, if we've got boards, there could almost be like two levels of sockets where there's like a car socket that's slightly deeper and then a garage door socket.
Yeah, so you could build it up with kind of like yeah, layers of slightly thicker card. Someone else talk because I can't draw something complicated and talk at the same time.
Well, I guess if you were doing that, then um there might be other ways we could exploit that. Like I think I've heard like house association rules about, for example, like what color your curtains or your can be, or like needing to have certain blinds or something.
Yeah, I must admit, this is the point where like my knowledge of the homeowners association is quite limited. Like, are they allowed to bother you about what's inside your house?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think basically they are. I don't have like the clearest understanding of it. Definitely anything that anyone can see from outside your house, they consider themselves to have the right to bother you about. So yeah, like they would have, so I think your curtains would definitely be up for conversation, but it's also stuff about like, is your lawn mowed? And is it up to the property line and stuff like that? Like,
I guess that there could be this is, this kind of a like, how long is a piece of string? Or how complex do we want to make this game? But if there was a rule about like what color plants you can have in your front garden, well, does it say anything about what color plants you can have in your window boxes
or in your
or
back garden? Yeah.
like yeah. But yeah, there's probably a um limited utility for the like multi-level sockets in the actual house, I suppose. um
I do like the concept of there being like set sockets around your house, but none of them have to have a certain thing in it. So like your car isn't limited to your garage or in your
yeah, you
drive.
can put your car. I do
If you
really
really
like the
want, it
idea
can
of
be
it
in
getting
your house.
a bit silly. Like, yeah, your car can be in your house.
Well, I think that definitely fits into the loophole theme, right? Like, it says that my car can't be on my driveway, but it doesn't say it can't be on my lawn. Or it says that my garage door has to be painted, but it doesn't actually say I have to have a garage door. And then, if you're the person who's done that, then if you're the one person who hasn't got a garage door, then you score at the end. But if other people have taken the same loophole, then you don't score it.
Yeah.
Mm.
I kind of feel
Yeah.
like we've got the game somewhat. So I wonder if we start thinking about like, what does it look like and what we call it?
I think I agree. I want to pitch whether there should be some kind of stage if we're playing rules and then played rules kind of remain in place in perpetuity. Could there be some kind of like, I don't know, every 3 rounds we take a vote on removing a rule or something? Like, should we create like some kind of a democratic thing, or does it? I mean, it doesn't really matter, I suppose.
Mm.
I kind of like it. I'll tell you what, and I'm kind of okay with this. I just wanted to observe that. I think we have lost the woodland animals.
Oh,
Very sad.
But
The
I think
weasel out name is gone.
I'm prepared to say farewell to Weasel Out, but I feel like the concept that we have is relatively strong without the inclusion of woodland animals.
yeah. I mean, we could just make that an art direction if we wanted to.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a Sylvanian families, and we just don't address the fact that everybody's a woodland animal.
Have you ever seen that TikTok account that does like Sylvanian families? Like it uses the little Sylvanian families animals, but they're having like kind of grotty dramatic lives.
No, I've never seen this.
I think it might be called Sylvanian dramas or something like that, but it's pretty good.
Oh, I really hope there's like consistent characters. It's just like a little Insta soap opera. That sounds fun. Okay, well, I agree that I think we've made a game of sorts.
A game of sorts. Well, that's all we can ever hope for. Do we have thoughts on what it might be called?
What's that Is it like curtain twitching?
Oh yeah.
Maybe something about that because it's, no, maybe.
I like it, but I feel like the homeowners association is really American and curtain twitching is somehow really British.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because it's not exactly about being nosy. It's about
No.
being like a busybody.
Puns. I'm thinking about blind something.
Um, something about like bending the rules or something about the rule book.
House rules.
House rules is pretty good. I like stuff to do with the suburbs, some sort of suburban thing.
Yeah, I like suburbs.
Burb watchers.
Burb watchers is good.
Just kind of make it sound like
heckin' Papa Doggo.
Yeah.
A little bit, but I feel like Burb Watchers is something pretty good.
It does make me think of like people looking out of blinds with binoculars, you know.
Yeah. Like yeah, I like that because I feel like it fulfills what we were sort of talking about with curtain twitchers or something, where it's, about people who just can't mind their own business. But it's also got that suburb. What about something with like picket fence, like pick it?
I thought you meant like a kind of not crossing a picket line thing. The picket line of really arbitrary, petty house rules. I like picket.
I think I like Burb Watchers a lot more.
Yeah,
like 100% more.
That's twice as much.
I sort of there's something about how loophole and rulebook both have a double O and an L that there's sort of something there, but not really. Like I don't know. I feel like Burb Watchers has clinched it for me.
It's very good. I do like it.
What about Loop Home? No.
I feel like Loop Home sounds like something else. Kind of Loop Home sounds sci-fi to me.
Oh yeah. Okay, well I'm happy with Burb Watchers.
And what about kind of like a visual identity? I'm definitely, I don't know. My immediate thought is kind of, that like mid-century fun with Dick and Jane, sort of Americana advertisements.
Yeah, I feel like we're a little bit kind of tied down. Like we can't necessarily do a very creative or fun thing with the look without slightly contravening our theme.
Yeah. Although, I mean, it is a thing that still exists. So we could do something, more contemporary.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, the kind of fun thing that I would imagine doing is like sort of jazzing it up and making it like, oh, you belong to, I don't know, a house association of vampires or something, and all the rules are very goth, and you're trying to be out there. But then again, that with the like, like if Burb Watchers is the name, I think.
What if, I mean, themed. If I was going to say, if you kept Burb Watchers, we could go back to the kind of like woodland wildlife Sylvanian families thing, and just have it be, like busybody animals.
Mm.
Mhm.
Or like everything is taking place in one person's garden and they just have tons of like bird shelters and all these birds have to follow the rules. And then the car's gone.
Yeah.
There's no car.
I feel like you could do the kind of like, Americana kind of throwback 1950s fake idyllic thing and do it with animals. I mean, the thing about that theme is that if you're going to do it, it has to have that kind of nasty edge to it, right? Like it kind of has to be like, yeah, people
Stepford
idealize,
Wives,
yeah,
like
exactly. People idealize this time, but it's bad, and this kind of behavior is bad, and we don't like it. So it would kind of be like maybe getting into kind of happy tree friends territory, where it's like cute animals, but they kind of suck.
Yeah, yeah. I think that, yeah, I mean, for like having that kind of like nasty attitude edge to it works as well, like on the box. Yeah.
I think I like doing a kind of Sylvanian families with a slightly nasty twist. I like that more than like vampires or monsters for this
No,
because
I agree.
it's about things that like look nice on the surface but actually are bad.
Yeah.
Mm.
Definitely like it's a nice backdrop to having a game that's a little bit sort of you wouldn't need to play it like this, but you could play it in kind of like a backstabby sort of you know,
I think
mean
that
kind of way.
backstabbing would be quite an important part of gameplay. I think it would be about like thinking about what rule to reveal at the meeting that's going to like screw over the most people.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
I'm imagining like an apron wearing kind of mom character with a tray of brownies but a big knife or
You need a
stuff
big
like that.
knife if you're going to cut your brownies
Well,
nicely.
exactly. But like, is that why she's got it?
For listeners, Georgia drew a big knife on this funny mum.
So yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a little bit edgier, like an aesthetic than we usually go for, but I also feel like it's a slightly different type of game than what we usually do.
Yeah. I mean, it would be hard to pin down what kind of game we usually do beyond like not necessarily loving Euro games.
We usually make games that are relatively simple. Something I like about this that we don't often do in games is this is a game where there's like individual player boards, which is often something that I avoid.
Mm.
Um, and I think that makes it so that it would be very scalable. You would need at
Yeah.
least 3 players, I think.
Yeah, and when you need at least 3, you like to go for a higher like top number.
Yeah, I think
reckon there could be 6 or maybe 8.
I was going to say 6 or 8 because with the player boards, you could also set them up like a little neighborhood, like.
Yeah, exactly. You're all around the table with your little house. Yeah.
Yep. I basically I love the theme that you bought, and I think it's made for quite a fun game.
This isn't anywhere near like what I kind of imagined that we were going to make.
I don't know that I knew what I was thinking though.
No, that's fair.
Yeah, I was definitely thinking more abstract terms, but when the homeowners association got brought up, I was like, that's immediately exactly what I think this should be.
There is a certain like it's not an abstract game, but there is a certain level of abstraction to it where you could sort of take the concepts and put them in a different theme or a different idea, but it's still kind of about trying to be the only one who has done something while also not being in contravention of a set of rules where you're not aware of all the rules.
Yeah.
Like that's the sort of the core idea. And we've just chosen like a cool theme to go on it.
Yeah, it could be like a square tiles game in theory. but just like,
yeah, the rules could be like, oh, a yellow tile and an orange tile can't be next to each other, like yeah, it could be pretty different, but I love the theming we've put on it. Miriam, do you want to try and do a recap? Do you want me to kind of jet through the slides and you recap what we got?
Okay, sounds good. So we started with loophole as the kind of starting concept, and we talked about different ideas of loophole and how they might be included in a game, like exploiting loopholes to rules or creating loopholes to rules, contracts, maybe changing rules. And we started thinking about what that might look like. And we talked about themes and landed on the idea of a homeowners association where you're trying to get away with as much as you can in your neighborhood and potentially police other people. We talked about different ways that might work and possibly the idea of some kind of intrigue or social deduction game. We kicked it about for a bit and we landed on a rule where a game where you can score points for uniqueness, for being the only person in the neighborhood who has a certain thing in a certain place or a certain color or what have you, and that you are trying to catch other people out by playing a rule that you know about that others don't and forcing them to conform to the rules, thereby preventing them from getting points for uniqueness. We basically have created a game where there are a whole variety of different things about your house that you can change, and every round has a kind of renovation phase and then a phase where each person gets to play a rule to try and catch others out. And we've called this game Burb Watchers. And we have given it kind of a like 1950s suburbia aesthetic with the like woodland animal families in a kind of Sylvanian family style, but that has a bit of a mean kind of catty edge to it. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. I think you hit everything. I think this has turned out to be a really, really fun one. Thank you for the great suggestion, Suzanna.
Yeah, thanks so much.
No problem.
Is there anything that you want to say to our one listener before we end the podcast with our famous catchphrase?
I don't know, not specifically. I guess I could plug Thirsty Meeples as well.
Yeah, go to Thirsty Meeples in Oxford.
Go to Thirsty Meeples. There's one in Bath as well.
Oh, is there? Oh, you go. Didn't even know this.
Yeah, go to Bath. Go to Thirsty Meeples.
I mean, I do like Bath.
It's nice. There's a Thirsty Meeples there.
Well, it's just gone up in my estimations.
Previously, the only thing I knew about Bath was from 2,000 years ago. So really,
they got some Roman baths. Then for a long time, nothing happened, and then they got a board game cafe.
Yeah, and then the last thing to say is I've been thinking for like the past 5 minutes about how you could get away with maybe wallpaper in your car in order to not have it a certain color.
That would be so good. Put curtains on your car.
Yeah, curtain your car.
It would be fun if like some of the components in a like almost like a loophole to the rules of the actual game, like you could use one of the paint icons and put it on your car. There's no socket for it, but everyone would just have to be like, God damn.
Yeah, I can't deny it. Yeah.
Or it like doesn't say you can't do that.
You don't have a garage door, but you do have a garage curtain.
Big curtain.
Yeah. I love it. I think we came up with something really fun here. So all that is left then is for us to say thank you to our listener. We love you, listener. One day we'll find you.
Thank you, Suzanna, for joining us. Thank you, listener, for listening, and viewer for viewing.
And until next time,
Caca!
Bye.